Hello, good morning. My name is Katie Zog, and I'm a licensed professional counselor and certified drug and alcohol counselor with Cascade Center's Employee Assistance Program. I am so excited that all of you here are here today. We are going to be talking about some of my favorite topics, and hopefully this can be helpful in applying to your professional life. So let's go over a couple housekeeping items and then we'll jump right into the topic. So you can use the small white arrow inside of the red box to maximize your control panel. Today I will be asking questions and I do ask that you type it into the questions pane. If you do have questions, please type those in. I will save time at the end of the presentation to go over questions. I will not be monitoring the raise hand feature, so please do not use that. Also, anything you type into the questions pane is anonymous and confidential. You will get your certificate emailed to you within a week. There are some an evaluation to fill out, which you will receive after the webinar. And then again, just make sure to submit your questions and we'll have time at the end to go over those. All right, I had a couple poll questions to get us started, just to get a feel of our audience and who's joining us today and kind of your experience with this topic. So first of all, I'm going to ask what mindfulness is. So again, these your answers are confidential. So go ahead and let's see here. Choose an answer that you think is the correct one. All right. Great job. 100% of you are correct. Being mindfulness is being present. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next question. What is resilience? All right, let's go ahead and look at the results. Most of you were correct. The ability to recover from difficulties. It doesn't mean that you won't have them, but it does mean that you're able to recover even if it looks different after. From your experience, do you think being mindful and resilient helps employees with productivity? All right, so the majority of them did say that majority of you do feel like those skills can help employees with productivity. Some of you did say no, so it'll be interesting as we go through this just to see what could be helpful for employees. Have you ever attended a professional training on either one of these topics, resilience or mindfulness? All right, it looks pretty split. So several of you have attended a training about this and some of you haven't. So hopefully all of you, no matter if you have or haven't, will get something from this training and be able to apply it in your professional life and in your workplace. One last question for you guys to get started. Do you practice mindfulness, whether that's in your personal or professional life? Well, I think this is fabulous. I've given this training multiple times, and I have never had quite as high of percentage of people who actually practice this in their lives. And so congratulations. We're excited also for the 24% of you who don't. Hopefully we'll give you some good practice today to see what that's all about and how that could be helpful. All right, well, this is exciting. Let's go ahead and jump into the presentation. I see that we have several more people who have joined since I've started. So just as a reminder, if you can go ahead and type your questions into the questions pane. I will not be monitoring the raised hand feature. A couple other things, if you're having any sort of difficulties or anything, go ahead and let me know too. Hopefully everybody can hear me. And we'll go over, I'll try to answer as many questions as I can throughout the presentation, but we will have time at the end as well for me to take questions. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, I wasn't typing through this. All right. So as many of you already know, mindfulness is about staying present. And it's a mental state, but obviously can impact our body as well. It can be help with our feelings, thoughts, bodily sensations, and it is a therapeutic technique. One reason that we chose to give a presentation on mindfulness resilience is, those are evidence-based practices. There's so much data out there on how it can be helpful to people. Resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. Whenever I think of resilience, I think of a rubber band, being able to be stretched, being flexible, being maybe going through difficult tension, but coming back to the same place or something similar, right? Because after difficulties, it might look different, but also we're able to kind of bounce back into our normal baseline selves. Employee wellness is obviously of great importance, and the topics that we're going to discuss today are great because they're universal. It doesn't matter if employees are full-time, part-time, seasonal. It doesn't matter if they're 50 or they're 20. It doesn't matter if they've been in the workforce for 30 years or for 6 months. It doesn't matter what their job description is, what their religion is, what their race is. Mindfulness and resilience can touch every single person's life and can help them to be better in managing work stress, managing life stress, because we know the two are interconnected, right? That's exactly why EAPs originated, and was because they saw that employees' personal lives impacted a person's professional life. And so offering people the chance to address those personal issues so that they can be better employees, so that their retention rate can improve, that they saw how much that these two are interconnected. 100% of customers are people, 100% of employees are people. If you don't understand people, you don't understand business. Let's talk about when to incorporate mindfulness. Mindfulness is such that it can only take a few minutes. I've been a counselor for over 15 years, and I have seen that when I do mindfulness with clients in session, it only takes about 2 to 3 minutes for them to feel a decrease in anxiety or tension or stress, worry, fear, depression. It can have an impact on all of those things with just a few minutes. So when you think about applying mindfulness in the workplace, it really doesn't take long. It can, but it doesn't have to. So some places that might be really helpful during a meeting, starting that off right at the start of the meeting with a mindfulness, or maybe ending with one. As they go throughout their day, they can have had that moment of mindfulness. Lunchtime options. There's actually a bunch of data about mindful eating. So lunchtime option would be a great thing. I went to a silent retreat on mindfulness, and one of the things they had us do was to have a blueberry, use mindful eating a blueberry. And that blueberry was in my mouth for probably 5 minutes. I had to smell it, I had to taste it, I had to think about the texture, about where it came from. And it was quite fascinating. And so lunchtime could be a good option to practice that. Just quick breaks throughout the day. I worked at a company where every hour a little reminder popped up on my screen to say take a break or do some deep breathing. It was incorporated into the culture of that workplace. When a reminder pops up on your screen, that could be automatic. That could be something that you just encourage employees to do. Put it on their calendars and respect that time. During the commute, right? This can be a helpful time. It can be a stressful time, especially if there is traffic or something that is difficult that they're maybe mulling over in their minds. Maybe they're running to and fro, dropping people off. So during their commute can be a great time to practice some of that mindfulness. Mindfulness doesn't have to be the practice of like closing your eyes or sitting still. You can do walking meditations and meditations with your eyes wide open. So remembering not to pigeonhole yourself into the I think the stereotypical, feet crossed, palms up, eyes closed sort of pose. So what I'd like to know is how your company encourages employees to be resilient and practice self-care. Maybe you could type it into the questions pane, things that you do at your company to help employees. Wellness, all right, the things are coming in. Wellness lunch and learns, those are great, having that. Avoiding the lunch hour for business calls so employees can step away. That's great to be respectful of people's lunch hours. ERGs, I'm not sure what that is, if you can type what that is. We send out Wellness Wednesday emails. That's great, highlighting features of our wellness website. And the email includes a self-care tip each week. I think that's lovely. Just getting that in people's hands, reminding them of their benefits, of their resources, and having a little tip in there. Encourage PTO. People earn those, and so encouraging them to use them is a great resource and a great way of helping them to understand the culture of their workplaces about self-care as well. Meditation room for admin office. We'd like to do more for all of our offices. I think having a dedicated space to do some breathing, to do some relaxation, having a yoga mat, something like that can be very, very helpful. Again, it encourages employees and says to them, we care about this. This is important to us and to you. Weekly wellness newsletters touching on different topics, nutrition, wellness. That's great. That sounds like something that is helpful to many different workplaces. We have 2 rooms dedicated to wellness, not just to new mothers. I think having, again, that dedicated space is just really, really valuable. Every company kind of has their own flair of doing it. I would just encourage you, if you couldn't name something off the top of your head about what your company does to encourage wellness, I would encourage you to see if there are ways to apply some of this, or to start different programs or different ideas, implementing them in the workplace to see if that can have a difference on employee productivity. Because what I think is again, it comes back to the culture. If you're making this a priority, employees will feel that, and they will feel the support in doing what they need to do to take care of themselves. I don't think that just diminishes, right? I think sometimes we think, well, that is taking away from their productivity. I did a presentation at Adidas once, and I talked to the managers there, and they said, hands down, they felt like if they could take that 3 minutes to do some mindfulness, their ideas, their brainstorming, their creativity was a significant increase from where it was when they didn't take that time. So I know kind of in our brain, sometimes it can feel counterintuitive to take a step back from it, but really sometimes getting that distance from it can be very helpful for the end product. All right, so I'm going to share a couple things that my workplace does. We actually just put out a cookbook. We do that every year. People submit their healthy recipes and a picture of it, and then we put it all together and we hand those out. We've actually had a massage therapist come on site, and we sign up for 15-minute slots to get a back massage, just a chair massage, really. And so I think those are really helpful things. We do have things like holiday parties and summer picnics, which can be very helpful. All right, so I do see some questions coming in. I'm going to save those for the end. I'm not ignoring you. I just want to make sure we have time to talk about those. So I'll make sure to save time. All right. Oops. So here are some other ideas. You guys have mentioned many of them. Offering seminars or classes. We, as an employee assistance program, we do offer classes. We have a whole list of things, right? Anywhere from communication to inclusivity to, drug and alcohol, so many topics. I think it's great to possibly just see what resources are out there for you. A group mindfulness practices, right? Sometimes it can be a little intimidating, but also pretty helpful to do that as a group, to see that other people care about this. Something that we've done as a company is do yoga together. You can turn your camera off if you want, so you don't have to, be vulnerable in that way. But also, we know that other people are doing it, which can be really helpful. Offer self-care in the workplace, right? Having healthy snacks, taking those breaks, respecting people's time. Wellness programs, that can look like a whole lot of things, but being able to make sure that that's a priority for employees. Lunchtime exercise group. In our office, we do a lot of walks. Some of them are formal, it's scheduled. Some of them are more spontaneous. Ask for input and feedback. This is a great thing. I think sometimes we don't really think about, but putting out that survey to employees, seeing what's working, what's not working, if they have any ideas, and how you can implement those things. Walking meetings, right? So often we're sitting in front of our screen now that many of us are remote. I've heard from multiple people that it's much harder to take those breaks when you're at home versus in the office. It's a little bit harder to get away from your computer or your phone. Show appreciation. When we do a wellness activity, we get a little gift card. It's not much, but it's just something to say, we appreciate you making this a priority for you so that you can, be productive at work and be here 100% when you're here at work. Appreciation doesn't have to be something monetary, right? We also have GEM awards. And so let's see, I should have looked up what it meant. Going the extra mile, that's what it means. And so we could fill out a GEM form and submit it to our supervisor, and just showing appreciation when people go above and beyond their work. Encourage employees to take those breaks. Supervisors check in with employees, right? That's invaluable to have supers know how their employees are doing, what they're stressed about, giving them resources and individualized, customized kind of suggestions for what can be helpful. Reminder pop-ups comes on their screen, reminding employees about their benefits. Hey, did you know that your insurance has, there's only a $5 copay for mental health visits? Or hey, here's your EAP. Oh, hey, you're stressed about buying a house? Your EAP can help you with that. So really being able to kind of know all the ins and outs of the benefits and reminding employees of those. Creating a space for mistakes. We're human. And so allowing people to be people is really important. Value the whole person, right? It's not just the person you see at work, but they come in with a lot of different things. And so how can you see all of that? And having a comfortable break room, like you guys have said, a meditation room, somewhere where a dedicated space where they can go to get a break. All right, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through a mindfulness exercise. Mindfulness exercises can look a lot of different ways. I'm going to do one that's a little bit general, but maybe some other kind of activities that might be a good mental kind of strategy for some of your employees. So when you feel ready, go ahead and find a comfortable spot in your chair or wherever you might be. You might uncross your legs, uncross your hands. Some find it comfortable to put your palms facing up. Some people might feel comfortable closing their eyes. But however you choose to sit, we call it sitting with dignity. We're sitting in awareness. I'd like you to bring all of your thoughts and attention to this present moment. This is the only moment that matters. Breathing in, breathing out. You might start to notice things, like how it feels to have your feet touching the floor. You might start to notice what parts of your body move when you breathe. You might start to notice if there are any areas of tension in your body. You might start to notice what you hear. Always remembering to breathe in and breathe out. Your breath is your anchor. And when your mind wanders, don't judge yourself. It's natural. But gently bring your thoughts and attention back to this present moment. Breathing in and breathing out. What I'd like you to do is every time you exhale, I'd like you to imagine your body getting heavier and heavier. Exhaling and allowing your body to melt into your chair. to melt into the floor, to melt into the earth. Relaxing parts of your body that are tense. What I'd like you to do is now imagine yourself laying in a field, surrounded by green grass, looking up at the blue sky, and there are clouds. I'd like you to imagine a work frustration that has happened. And I want you to imagine yourself putting that work frustration, that worry, that fear, that stress, that anger, whatever those negative emotions might be, I want you to think of those things on that cloud. The cloud even might change colors depending on how you feel. What I'd like you to do is imagine that cloud coming and that cloud going, coming into view and going out of view. Negative emotions come and they go. We don't have to hold on to them. Mindfulness is about observing. It's about responding rather than reacting. And when you find your mind wandering, gently bring it back, remembering that your breath is your anchor. And when you feel ready, go ahead and bring your thoughts and attention back to the room. You might open your eyes. If you have thoughts or comments about that mindfulness, go ahead and type them into the questions pane. And let's hear what your experience was like with that. All right, somebody said it was wonderful. Somebody says it feels like it might work for people who are neurodivergent. Possibly not everybody, but some. The nice thing about mindfulness is that it has been proven to work with a wide variety of audiences and experiences. There are some great books out there. We're going to go over some at the end, but maybe even finding some specific to your experience. Somebody had missed a couple phone calls while they were doing it, but longer and smoother breathing. Right? It's amazing what kind of slowing down that breathing does for us. Changes the hormones in our bodies, changes our alertness, changes our problem solving. There's so many benefits to doing that. Thank you for all who participated in that. Mindfulness, again, what we did was about 4 minutes long. It doesn't take much to be able to feel a difference in our stress levels. And it could be something done in just a small amount of time, and it can look a lot of different ways, right? You could be walking, you can have your eyes open, you could do it in a meeting without anybody even know you're doing it. Why it's important. So what positives have you seen in employees who are more mindful or resilient when life throws them difficulties? Go ahead and share some of your experiences with seeing employees who are more this way. What have you seen in them that's different or more positive? I've seen this. I'm a supervisor at work, and I've seen this with my supervisees. It's really amazing how noticeable it is when people, when supervisees have the skills to be able to bounce back from difficult experiences, or are able to be mindful and be present. Especially as a counselor, my supervisees meet with a lot of difficult people, and it really does help them to be more present with their employees, to be more empathetic, to be able to recall interventions that might be helpful for that client. And so I think overall it just puts them ahead of the game in being able to be a strong, competent, empathetic counselor. Somebody typed in that they're able to handle their emotions differently and or better, right? I think this is true. Like I said in the mindfulness, is that when people can be mindful, they become responsive rather than reactive. Very, very helpful. Positive attitude. It spreads to everybody, which tends to turn the mood and productivity around. I think morale in the workplace is so vital. And when you have somebody who's more positive, somebody who can acknowledge difficult experiences, but then be able to come back from them and not let that stay with them, then they're able to, it's kind of contagious to many different people. So thank you for sharing those. You know, these are empirically supported approaches, and it reduces rumination, stress reduction, boosts memory, focus, lessens reactivity, more cognitive flexibility, relationship satisfaction, and improved immune function even. So research shows how in such a variety of ways it's beneficial for the employee. I'd like to go over a couple resources. So there are many books and apps and websites and stuff. I'm just going to go over a few today. But John Kabat-Zinn is kind of the father of mindfulness. He actually, I think it was the University of Minnesota, he worked with chronic pain patients, and that's where mindfulness originated. And if you've had any employees who struggle with pain, you can understand that this might be really helpful for people in those situations. I remember when I was going to a birthing class that they had us hold an ice cube, which if you've done is not very comfortable. And they had us hold it, and without any sort of like teaching us anything or no strategies, and it was awful, and it felt like forever that we were doing that. And then they taught us some mindfulness, and then they had us hold the ice cube again, and it was such a different experience holding it while you're doing mindfulness. That experience has stuck with me years later because it's so incredibly potent, that experience to go from handling something without it to handling something with mindfulness, and to see the difference. So anyways, mindfulness started with pain patients, but obviously research shows that it can be helpful. It's an evidence-based stress reduction technique. So John Kabat-Zinn, he has a couple books in here. Mindfulness and 8-week plan can be great, just because it gives, practical ideas. Think like a monk, resilience, hard-won wisdom for living a better life, and how to grow unshakable core of calm, strength, and happiness. These skills can be learned. I think people do come into the world a little bit different. Some people might be a little bit more present-based. Some people might be a little bit more resilient to difficult experiences, but that doesn't mean people can't learn these skills. So making sure that you're setting it up to do that. There are many apps out there. Here are just a few. I did also want to share a resource I found recently, which is actually on Netflix, which most of us have access to. And so it's pretty great if you just type in headspace or mindfulness on Netflix. It'll show up, and what it is you can choose what you're feeling and how many minutes you have, and it will walk you through a guided meditation right on Netflix. There's also some great programs in your communities. Some places to look would be wellness centers, yoga centers, hospitals, online classes, websites. Universities know how helpful mindfulness is, so many of them have mindfulness resources right on their website. If you just type in mindfulness on YouTube, there's some beautiful guided meditations on there. You can also type in something specific like grief mindfulness or sleep mindfulness. One mindfulness on YouTube that I love is if you type in loving kindness meditation, and it's a yellow flower. It's about 16 minutes long, and it's a beautiful mindfulness to walk through. And then Calm is a website you can use. There's also some self-assessments that you could take, or your employees could take, just to kind of see where they're at. The Professional Quality of Life Scale, ProQual, and the Resilience Scale for adults. So these are two you can find online. It might be a fun activity to do in a staff meeting, or send it out to employees, take it on your own time, see where you land. That can be very, very helpful. I wanted to share one last story before we go into questions. I had the opportunity to work with nurses and to teach them mindfulness. And I would teach them, and we would try to find times throughout their day to apply it. And I remember the nurses just kind of feeling like there's absolutely no time during our day to do this. And I remember they kind of felt a little bit disheartened because they were so busy. And I remember us coming up with something that they found to be helpful, and it was every time that they touched the doorknob to go into a patient's room, that was their cue to take 2 deep breaths. Just like that, 2 deep breaths before going into that patient's room. That was all they could do. That was all the time allotted, but they still found how helpful that was. So I encourage you, even if things are very busy, even if employees feel disheartened that they can't do this, find those little moments, find those little cues that employees can use to do that. I have 10 minutes between each client. I have to make sure to do some mindfulness in between so that I can be ready for the next one. So whatever it is, find those times. All right. Perfect. Oh, I had somebody type in that they actually learned mindfulness from a professional, from their professor at their university, which I think is true. I think that it is very, it can be very helpful in stressful situations. People like universities, hospitals, pain patients, cancer patients, they know that mindfulness is helpful, and so they've incorporated that. Workplaces should do the same. Keep those conversations going. keep talking about this so employees can know what can be helpful. All right, I have left some time for questions. So I have one already in there. If you have questions, go ahead and take a minute to type it in, and then we will make sure to go over those. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about those questions. How can we balance communication so that the impact is positive, but not to the point of ignoring that things are not necessarily okay? Positive toxicity, I think that that's a great question, because there's, you know, with my clients, I talk about two things. I talk about acknowledgement, and I talk about strategies for distracting, right? Because I think that if we do either one of those without the other one, that it can get too burdensome, right? So if we just acknowledge and focus on that, then we're not allowing ourselves space to be flexible and to grow and to learn and move on from that. But if we're only focusing and distracting and escaping from it, we're not really addressing what's gone on. So I would definitely compare those two, or to join those two, right? Using both of those, acknowledge and distract, acknowledge and distract. So, or how would you say, self-care, right? Or gratitude. So I think, like that person was saying, that they give like a self-care tip. Some of those tips should be to talk about it, to find a therapist, to join a support group for addressing some of the negative things that are happening. And it's not a but, it's an and. How can we also find some strategies to be resilient, right? How can we find gratitude? How can we learn from these difficulties? How can we acknowledge and address them, but also not have to carry the weight of them? So, of course, I think the way that we talk about that is very, very important. Hopefully, those were some helpful ideas. Are there any other questions that anybody has? I'd like to just kind of also just let you know that Cascade Centers for Employee Assistance, we have a lot of resources. If you're ever interested in our services, please give us a call. And you're welcome to email me if you have questions. We're so glad you attended today. And hopefully that you can really change and enhance the culture of wellness, the culture of mindfulness, and the culture of resilience into your workplaces to help employees. Thank you and take care.